The amount of money we spend on it. Millions of Americans cannot afford housing. 800,000 people are homeless. We have massive levels of income and wealth inequality. People on top have never, ever have done as well as they're doing right now, while at the same time, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, working people struggling to put food on the table, pay for housing, pay for health care, pay for education. And maybe most frighteningly, from an economic point of view, for the first time in the modern history of our country, our younger people may actually have a lower standard of living than their parents, despite all of the advances we're seeing in technology and worker productivity. So those are all enormously important issues that we've got to address. But there is one issue out there that is even more pressing and more important, and that is that this country under President Trump every single day is moving closer and closer toward an authoritarian society where we have a reckless and unbalanced president who wants more and more power in his own hands. This is a president who has made it clear he has contempt for Congress and will usurp the power, the constitutional responsibilities Congress has, contempt for the courts, attacks the media every day, does not believe in freedom of dissent, goes after universities. And now, on top of all of that, what we are seeing is that one of our great American cities, Minneapolis, Minnesota, is essentially being occupied by ICE. And what's going on in Minneapolis and has gone on in other cities is not what this country is about, and it's not what this country must never become. We do not want and we do not need what amounts to a domestic army going into region after region, terrorizing the occupants of those communities. We do not want or need and must never allow federal agents, people paid by federal tax dollars with masks on their face, knocking down doors, ignoring the Constitution, grabbing people, putting them into unmarked vans, taking 5-year-olds away from their parents, putting them in detention centers, shooting American citizens in cold blood. So what ICE has become is not an agency of immigration and customs enforcement. What it has become is Trump's domestic army. And I would hope that my conservative friends, people who year after year get up here and say, we believe in small government, get the government off our backs, let local communities make their own decisions, finally stand up and say that in America, we do not need a domestic army terrorizing communities throughout this country. Mr. President, in the so-called big, beautiful bill, Congress not only made massive cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, it not only gave $1 trillion to the top 1% at a time when we have unprecedented income and wealth inequality, it did something perhaps even more dangerous. In that bill, as many will recall, Congress appropriated $75 billion over a 4-year period to go to ICE, on top of their previously appropriated $10 billion in funding. So they usually get $10 billion a year for immigrations and custom enforcement, and suddenly, on top of that, they got $75 billion over a 4-year period. And that is not funding immigration and customs enforcement. That is, in fact, funding a domestic army. And I think all over this country, whether you're progressive, whether you're conservative, whether you're a moderate, people are looking at what's happening in Minneapolis and elsewhere and saying, you know what? That is not what this country is supposed to be about. So, Mr. President, my understanding is that in a reasonably short period of time, we're going to begin a discussion on the mini bills that are before us. And I have an amendment in that bill which would cut that $75 billion from the so-called big, beautiful bill that went to ICE, and I would direct that money to go to protect the millions of people who that bill threw off of Medicaid. As everybody will remember, in the midst of a major health care crisis, people can't afford health care, the big, beautiful bill threw 15 million people off of Medicaid. So instead of funding a domestic army which breaks the Constitution every day, we should be putting that money to help the people of our country get the health care that they need. I look forward to support for that amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.